Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Leci and today we will talk about speaking tests. Definition of speaking test. Of all skills such as listening, speaking, reading and writing, speaking is the most important skill. When testing someone's oral proficiency, we can interview and assess their responses or use different techniques to measure someone's speaking ability. Types of speaking tests. 1. Self-assessment. Self-assessment is the easiest, cheapest, and quickest form of assessment. Someone does this by listening to himself as he speaks, by watching what effect has on other people's appearance and behavior. 2. Teacher assessment. The teacher assessment is the person who has the most expensive of the learner's speaking ability in the foreign language. Instead of being based on a 10-minute test, teacher assessment will be based on 10 hours exposure to the learner language. 3. Peer assessment. Students can assess one another. Students can easily judge their friend's ability in oral communication because they have a large amount of contact. 4. The direct interview test. The direct interview test is the most common and the most authentic type of oral test. Techniques of this type are discussion, interview, form filling, and sentence correction. 5. Mechanical predictable test. Mechanical type test determine in advance what the learner is expected to say. There is single correct answer on this test, such as reading aloud, sentence transformation, sentence repetition, translating, and sentence correction to test the learner in foreign language. 6. Recording oral test. Learner must record himself and their spoken are recorded on the tapes in its board and then collect for a marking. 7. Sequencing test. Oral test usually consists of several techniques placed in a sequence, which may either be fixed in advance or left to the interviewer's discretion and experience. And the last, computer in language test, a test that is carried out virtually through a computer, with a complete test in it, such as multiple choice, true false, matching, and etc. Techniques of speaking test. 1. Discussions. This is the most natural test when two people having a conversation on a topic of common interest. 2. Oral report. The learner prepares and gives an oral presentation about 5 to 10 minutes. 3. Role play. The learner is asked to take a particular role and imagine himself in that role. 4. Interview. The most common of oral tests is the interview. It is a direct face-to-face exchange between learner and interviewers. 5. Reading blank dialogue. The learner is given a dialogue with only one part written in it, and fill the blank dialogue with their ability to speak. 6. Using a picture or picture story. The learner is given a picture or sequence of pictures to look at before the test starts. Then, the interviewer allows the student to describe the picture freely. 7. Giving instruction, description, and explanation. The learner describes at some length and well-known object, a system, or an everyday procedure. 8. Retelling story from oral or written stimulus. The learner hears a short passage or a story on record and reads it to himself and is asked to retell or summarize it immediately afterwards. 9. Reading aloud. The learner reads aloud to the interviewer either a passage or a text dialogue. 10. Questions and answers. This typically consists of a series of synchronous questions which are grade 11, translating or interpretation. The interviewer chooses a passage or series of passages from native language text and then asks the learner to translate it into foreign language. 12. Sentence repetition. The learner hears a series of sentences or utterances and repeats them as accurately as he can. Mark system in speaking tests. Underhill 1987 classifies the scoring system to 8 procedures. 1. Marking record oral test. Oral tests can be recorded on video or audio tape so that they can be marked later. 2. Marking case or marking protocols. Marking case or marking protocol aims to save time and uncertainty by specifying in advance, as far as is possible, how marker should approach the marking each question or test. 3. Mark categories. In mark categories, the marker is asked to give its learner a spirit mark for each category. The spirit marks are then combined to give the overall score. 4. Weighting is a process by which marks are awarded out of the same total for different marks categories. And these marks are then multiplied by different factors to give the more or less influence in total score. 5. Rating scales. A rating scale is a series of short descriptions of different levels of language ability. Its purpose to describe briefly what the typical learner at each level can do. 6. Impression marking. The assessor awards a mark based on the learner overall performance, without picking out any special feature or using a counting system for errors. 7. Additive marking. The assessor has a prepared list of features to listen out for during the test. And the last is subtractive marking. The assessor subtracts 1 mark from a total each mistake the learner makes, down to a minimum of 0. The purpose of speaking test is to measure the extent of student speaking skill and find out what weakness the student has. Aims to test general proficiency as well as how much students have learned from a particular test. I think that's all from me. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.